Today's episode has been brought to you by Schedulicity.
And also by the Connected Yoga Teacher Collective. This is a place where you can learn from yoga teachers who are already teaching live online yoga at this time. This was put together really quickly with all things that yoga teachers are dealing with, and especially with your questions that you have been asking in our Facebook group and in emails. Our guest teachers walk us through how they teach online, the technology they use, and they share what they have learned along the way. So you can apply to either be a guest teacher or you can sign up to join the collective. Go to theconnectedyogateacher.com/collective. If you are new here or if you are a returning listener, hello and welcome. This is the Connected Yoga Teacher Podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Crow. I'm a mom of 3, a yoga teacher, and a trainer and consultant who works for yoga teachers. And this podcast was created for you so that you can connect to the information and inspiration every single week and feel supported as you navigate these sometimes very overwhelming, tricky jungles of being an entrepreneur and also being a yoga teacher. If you are listening in real time, happy May the 4th be with you, Connected Yoga Teachers. I want to hear how you are doing. We are here in May for our U.S. teachers. I know that I've been listening to the news and listening to how maybe some things are starting to open up in different states. And so if you want to leave me a voicemail to tell me how things are going wherever you are around the globe with your yoga classes, there is a button on our website. Leave your name, tell us where you're calling in from, and leave us a message there. You might get to hear it on the podcast. This episode is a follow-up to our previous episode 167 with Sandra Booker. Sandra talked with us about when and how to hire a VA. And on the same theme in today's episode, we're talking about making a recruiting plan with Reneé Clair. One of the best parts of growing a team is that it frees you up to have more time to do the things in your business that you love to do. However, when you think about all of the moving parts of your business, it can be really overwhelming and tricky to know how and where to start offloading our tasks to other team members and where to look for ideal people to be on our team. Reneé takes us through this process today, and this is the exact process that she helped me with when I was hiring. Reneé talks about where we can start, how to know who you should recruit, and the steps to take in the recruitment process, as well as other details of crafting a recruiting plan. We are facing a time right now, yoga teachers, where we really get to decide what it is that we want to do in this time where the entire globe is facing job loss and economy crisis. There are some of you out there who are looking for other jobs and finding things that you can do in this time. Reneé has some great tips on how to find that job. What if you're on the other side of this interview process? And I also really wanted to bring this episode to you today because I think this is one of the most valuable things we can do. How can we take a look around in our business and see, is there some work that I can offload right now? Am I in a place where things are getting busier for me and I can work to hire someone who needs some hours? Maybe it even just starts off 1 or 2 hours a week. Reneé has a really nice list that will be ready for you, a numbered list of each and every point of this process, and I'll make sure that that's in our show notes at theconnectedyogateacher.com/167. And if you are on the go, don't worry, you can come back at any time to any show notes page and you will see our talking points, clickable timestamps, links, all kinds of things are in our show notes. If you have not checked out our show notes pages, go there. If you listen to this episode and you love this episode, or if you have a question for Reneé, ask it in the comments of this show notes page. I want to send a shout out of thank you to 3 people. Well, 2 people and 1 company. So first of all is our sponsor, Schedulicity. Oh my goodness, Schedulicity is doing some amazing work right now. They have paused all fees to everyone using their software program. This is an amazing booking program for any yoga teachers in North America. I highly recommend checking into Schedulicity. Let's hear our hot tip of the week from the team over at Schedulicity.
Hey Connected Yoga teachers, this is Allison with the Schedulicity Hot Tip of the Week. Shannon let us know that some of you have been asking about linking Schedulicity with your Google Calendar. Let's walk through that connection now. Once you've logged in with your admin account, head to Settings and open the Providers/Instructors page. Choose your name from the list, and under the Calendar Share header, move that No slider to Yes. Select and copy the full URL that appears in the text field. Next, sign into your Google account and click on the grid box at the top right of the page where you will select the calendar option. Click on the small plus button on the right of the Add Calendars area. Now, choose the option that says From URL and paste your generated link from Schedulicity there. Click Add Calendar and you're good to go. Google generally pushes their calendar share updates once a day, so you may see up to a 24-hour delay in your schedule changes. Also, keep in mind that this is a one-way share in which your Schedulicity appointments will be visible from your Google Calendar, but not vice versa. You may want to work out of your Schedulicity account to avoid double booking yourself just in case.
Also, a shout out of thank you to two of you who left a review a while back, but I get to them when I can. I love to read each and every review, and I try and read them on the podcast so that I can say thank you. I love it also when I can see people from around the world. So Hanley from South Africa says, thank you for an inspiring and informative podcast. Thank you for uplifting our yoga community in so many ways. And Pigeon Missing a Button from the United States, I'm guessing that's a username, not a name, says, I started listening to this while studying for my 200-hour YTT final exam as a break from reading. I was hooked. It is kind, thoughtful, and a pleasure to listen to. Thank you for the hard work that goes into this wonderful resource. I really do feel connected when I listen to it, and the Facebook group is amazing. Thank you so much, Hanley from South Africa and Pigeon Missing a Button from the United States. It is so great to read your reviews. I would love to hear from both of you. If you want to leave us a voicemail, you can go to theconnectedyogateacher.com. And anyone else listening, tell me, how are things going? Pigeon Missing a Button, you said that you were doing your 200-hour. I'm so curious. How is it going for those of you who are leading a 200-hour right now that had to jump online, or taking a 200-hour that needed to jump online, or were you thinking about signing up for a 200-hour YTT and then all of this hit? I am so curious to hear that story. So reach out, use our voicemail button, and tell me if you would like to share a bit of that on the podcast. If you are one of those podcast listeners that listens all the time and thinks about leaving a review but hasn't, go and leave us a review. You can see where to do that right from our show notes page, or you can go into your podcast app, go into Apple, iTunes, something, you can leave a review there, or look for our Facebook page, the Connected Yoga Teacher Facebook page, and you can leave a review there as well. Let's dive in and meet the recruiting wonder who is Reneé Clair. Renee is the founder of Clair de Lune Yoga and has been teaching yoga since 2015. She's a yoga and meditation teacher, but also apart from that, she is passionate about helping yoga teachers build their teams in order to offload tasks and accomplish their dream goals. Renee helps wellnesspreneurs understand how they can make their business run more efficiently by building their team and streamlining their processes, which saves them time and makes them more money. She combines her love of business psychology with an understanding of yoga, entrepreneurship, project management, stress reduction, and work-life integration to help yoga teachers have fun while building their business. In a nutshell, Renee is a yoga teacher who works for yoga teachers by recruiting multi-talented yogis. Let's meet Renee and find out what it's like to craft a recruiting plan. Welcome to the Connected Yoga Teacher Podcast, Renee. It is an absolute pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm so excited that you've invited me. This is a little mini dream come true.
I'm excited to hear that. I can't wait until our yoga teacher listeners get to hear a little behind the scenes of everything that went in when I asked you, right in the middle of me hiring someone, if you could help me. And I appreciate that you just jumped in partway through, even though I hadn't really followed the steps that you have in your recruiting process. But before we get there, can you tell us, who do you work for and what is the work that you do?
Who is your daddy and what does he do? Sure. So I have migrated out of teaching in the classrooms, and I teach private yoga online and in person. And of course, I migrated to this part of yoga teaching with your help. So thank you. And I also recruit. So I recruit in my daytime job. I recruit engineers, hardware and software engineers. And yeah, when one day you and I had our consultation call together, you were helping me, and I thought, wait a minute, I can help Shannon with this process.
Yeah, and you sure did. Like, I was blown away at the detail. So I wanted to outline this for our yoga teachers, and realizing that I jumped in partway through, I want you to guide these teachers through in terms of what would be the best thing, not what did Shannon do at the very beginning. So once we decide that we're going to hire someone, what do you think is the next step in terms of, all right, let's put this job out there?
Yeah. So the first thing that you should do when you decide, okay, I really need some help is think about what it is that you really need help with. Think about those tasks, and then think about who you are. So think about the things that are important to you, your values, your little mini corporate culture, and then create a job description so you can tell people clearly who it is that you're looking for. Like if you want a yoga teacher on your team because they're really going to understand yoga and you, and then you will include your values as well as all those tasks and maybe some skills like organizational skills and things like that.
Okay. So then this is our job description. We're deciding, okay, what are the things I need help with? Is that right? This is the job description part?
That is the job description. Yes.
And this is super important so that someone could read it and see, am I a good fit for this? Do you have any tips for when we write this out? Like, how do we write it out? Do we do it in a Google Doc? Do we post it online? Like, where should we put this job description?
Yeah, I would encourage everybody to write it down, maybe on a piece of paper first, maybe meditate on it, and then journal it down, and then transcribe it onto your Word doc or your Google Sheet, wherever you keep yourself organized. And then from there, it's up to you. You have a couple of options. You can send your job description and let people know that you're hiring in your newsletter, to your Facebook group, to your Instagram, to wherever your audience is. And I really encourage you to start there because those are the people who are interested in what you have to offer, and most likely those are the people who are going to want to give back and to work with you. You can also use job boards like maybe Indeed or LinkedIn, but I'd really encourage you to start with your network, what you have on hand. It makes it so much easier and so much more fun.
Okay, I agree. So this is what I did. I put a job description together. I knew I like I always feel like I almost push it to the line of I needed help a few months ago. So the job description I threw together quickly. I put a type form application together with that and then put it out there to my community. So do you want to talk about then the application? Because you know that I did it on type form. What are the other ways that we can put the application together?
Yeah, I loved how you use Typeform. I hadn't seen anybody do that before, and so I thought that was really cool. Um, the other thing that's super easy for people if they have a Google Suite is to use Google Forms. It's super easy to just put their questions in there and then they can answer it all and click send. Um, there are other other ways to create an application or a survey, like SurveyMonkey. You can put your application in there. It kind of, aligns. And if you have any questions about that, you can ask me. But those are the types that I would go for. And if you're not comfortable with using, those kinds of platforms, you can just have people fill it out on a Word doc and send it back. Just the good old type in your answers under here. It's easier if you use something like Typeform or Google Sheets, because you can then take that data and export it into a spreadsheet of some sort.
Okay. Oh, this is good. This is what helped me then
Yes.
for the next step with you. And I want to highlight here, like, what I did not want is hundreds of emails. So, I mean,
Mm.
I'm hiring because I need help. And what I didn't need was more work. So I thought, oh, I want it all in type form. But that's where then, okay, so here's one question that I have. When people submit their application, they were then starting to reach out to me to say, did you get my application? Like, they were private messaging me or emailing me. So what could I have put in place? Well, actually, now that I pay for Typeform, I know that I can send an auto response back.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yes.
Yes.
So something new that I've discovered recently is that, well, actually, I think we hear it as yoga teachers. The more that we dig into our business, is all about automation. If we can automate things, we're going to really save ourselves some time. And that's even true within your own recruiting process. So I would encourage you to have a cutoff date for your applications. And then you can use Typeform, which maybe sends automatic, we've received your application. Please allow 7 to 8, 7 to 10 business days for processing, or something like that, something generic. Or you can have your cutoff date and then send everybody a blind copy email and say, thanks so much for applying. I'm so excited to review your application. I'll be in touch within the next 2 to 3 weeks, or whatever timeline. But when you give people a timeline, they feel kind of comforted and like they can relax and take a load off. And we're honoring our other yoga teachers, especially if we're pulling from our yoga teacher pool or just our private yoga students. And we're just really honoring everybody by saying, hey, I hear you, I see you, and I'm going to get right back to you.
This is so nice. It's so nice to receive something like that. This is the part where I feel like that's when you and I were talking, you were telling me all about the recruiting work that you do. And I thought, this is what I need. Right from that point, like right from the Typeform, the application went out, I kind of wanted to wash my hands until I was ready to hire someone. So that's what went really well. Because sorting through was the work that you did. You dove in then and sorted through all of the applications. Do you want to talk about how you do that?
Yeah, I'm such a data nerd. I think that's kind of one of the problems I've had in my life, is I'm always going back from psychology and statistics back to yoga and wellness, and doing this process with you, Shannon. It's like I found my ultimate like happy place where I just geeked out. So we took all the applications and we exported the data into a Google spreadsheet. And then I went ahead and looked at 60 responses, so 60 people who had applied. And what I did was I started easy. I just ranked things. So Shannon, you had this beautiful way of asking questions and asking people to rate their responses. How much do you agree with this response on a scale of 1 to 5, which is actually really advanced in an application, by the way. So congratulations. So I looked at, okay, I want to look at people who answered this question at a 4 or a 5, because that means either A, they're really knowing their own skill for this, and they know that they can do a good job, or B, it's a culture question for the connected yoga teacher, and we really want someone who agrees with Shannon because this is a high value for her. And then I went through and I knew that you wanted to find people who had certain social media types or certain skills. And so I actually did some color coding too, which is so much fun. For green, yes, this person is a match on the skill or this knowledge area. Yellow, like a maybe, or I need some more information. Or red, ooh, other things align, but this kind of doesn't. And then I came up with about 10 people out of the 60 just by easily sorting and ranking. And that made me really excited to know, okay, we in just a jiffy we could really cinch down on all of this, and then I could provide you with the candidates I thought I should interview for you in the next step.
Yeah, and this was like, I don't know, I felt like I had given you this, well, it was very plain Excel. Here's all the information. And then it came back in such a way that I could visually see, okay, there's a red flag, there's a green, like lots of green over here. This person's a really good fit. And let me give an example for our listeners of a red flag. So, one of my questions was, who's the host of the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast? And the reason I asked that is because if people can't look it up online or don't listen to the podcast, it's not a good fit. And I remember seeing a red there and just thinking, well, that's an easy no. Like,
Yes.
either can't do our research or we don't even listen at all. Yeah. And the other thing that I saw you do with this sorting is then we had a check-in call and you explained it to me as well. And I think that was super helpful. Is there
Yeah.
anything that you would tell people if they're overwhelmed with the sorting piece of things? Like the color coding was helpful. Like I just see this. What makes it in your brain feel like, ooh, I can't wait to dig in and geek out, like you said, on this data and sort it? I don't get that at all.
Well, I make it fun. I turn on some music, and for me, I see people within the numbers. So I see these wonderful, uniquely talented people. In our case, there are a whole bunch of beautiful yoga teachers, and I'm a yoga teacher. And I just found it really interesting because I wanted to learn about their backgrounds. But at the same time, my main goal was to find you the top bunch of them. So I was really excited to see like kind of like a this is gonna sound so nerdy, like Tetris. I was trying to find the people with these skills, like the little, L-shaped piece that would match with your L-shaped piece to make like a line that would like blink and go away. But that's just the rationalization in my mind, which sounds so silly now that I say it out loud.
Oh my
But
gosh, I love it. Well, that's because I'm a fan of Tetris as well.
um, but I think going back to making it easier on people if they can't geek out like that is to use more of the type of questions where you actually had people rank. And once I was done sorting those ranked questions, then I dug into the more meaningful questions, and I could find what people had in common with you. Like there were a few people who did, or they had some background in prenatal yoga or postnatal yoga or pelvic health. And I thought, ooh, Shannon will probably find those people really interesting. And so for our listeners, when they're doing that and they're asking these questions, and when they get the responses back, they can look for people who have these commonalities, and where they want to go within their career.
Right. This is so good. I also want to say to our listeners that I'm happy to share a copy of that type form so that they can look at it and look at some of the questions. Obviously, you would change it all for your own business, but it might give them some help or a place to start. And the other thing I wish I would have done. So I wanted to make sure that I addressed pay rate in my application. I don't know what your take on this. I'd love to hear your take on this. Mine was because I want someone who's comfortable talking about money right from the start, because that's something that I've learned really helps me in business. And that's something I talk about on the podcast. But what I didn't do is I didn't say which currency. So they told me their pay rate, but I didn't know where they lived. And then I remember that was a bit of work for you. So sorry about that. What is your take on pay rate? Do we put it in there? Do we tell them how much we want to pay, or do we ask them? How does that work?
It can be both. So so what I think is a great thing to do is what you did, is ask that question just up front. What is your asking pay rate or preferred pay rate or whatever, and then you can kind of sort people from there too. If they're asking for something that's outside of your budget, they may be a great person, but they're just not the person for you right now and within the budget that you can afford, and that's totally okay. And then what we did is when I went through my first round of interviews, I went ahead and asked that question again because I
Right.
knew exactly where they were, whether they were in the US or Canada. And that did make a huge difference because when you're looking for someone, especially if they're virtual, that's the pay rate can be different because our regions, even the United States where I am, it's so vastly different from California where I live compared to my home state of Texas.
Right.
And so both of those are okay. So you can do both. You can do just one. And actually for I'm going to sidebar here for a minute. So for our listeners who are actually interviewing for jobs, it's so important to talk about and be okay with setting a salary range that you're happy with. Now, it does involve some research, but employers are looking for people who are comfortable with being a little bit assertive and saying, I'm looking for X amount of dollars. For some reason, when I was younger, I was taught not to say anything, to say, oh, it's negotiable or oh, it's this or whatever. But I think things have shifted now. And so I'd like to encourage everybody to just have that money mindset and believe in themselves and do their research and find a number that's comfortable.
Oh, that's some good advice for sure. So then we had done the check-in with the interview, and then you interviewed how many people?
We interviewed our top 8. I suggested 10 and we chose 8. And then actually, did we choose 9? One of them actually pulled herself out of the interview very nicely, and that's totally okay. So I think I did 8 or 7 to 8 phone calls.
Right,
And
and what I loved is that you did this. I didn't have to do anything. I think at that time you had talked to me. I'm not sure where in this list of things that we did, where you had talked to me and said, "Shannon, at some point, you will do your interviews," and you had set that up. It must have been before you did these interviews because I feel like you gave them a time. Is that correct? Help me
yes,
through this.
yes, I love this. I love going down memory lane. So I chatted with you even before we picked the top 8 and we came up with a timeline. We walked backwards. You had a rollout of a program that you were doing, and we thought that would be a great time to have someone already kind of know the ropes to help out, and that way you could offload. And so we wanted them to be hired a week before your program, and we also needed to take in consideration your vacation time and your time off because it was during the holidays that we were doing all this.
Right.
So from there, we did have our discussion, and you agreed on a certain number of them, and then I went ahead and this this makes me so happy too. I love sending out invites. I love keeping people organized. I told Shannon I'm going to interview people in within this week, so she knew when I was going to do it, and then I talked to everybody for about 30 or 45 minutes. Our phone calls were, and then I took notes during the interviews and in my magical spreadsheet, as everybody calls it now. And then when I was ready, I sent it over to you, and I think you read all of my notes before we chatted again.
Yes, and they were so helpful. Like, there were some really good notes in there. Are there any, like, if our yoga teachers listeners are wanting to hire and they're doing this all on their own, they can't hire you with your magic spreadsheet, what are, like, the top 3 questions you would ask in those interviews?
Oh, that's a really good question. Um, I the I can tell you types of questions because everybody is going to be so different from what they're going to want to ask for. So the first type of question I would encourage everybody to ask or create some questions around is is your culture and the future of your company. It's always important not to just see a candidate for where they are right now, but how could they grow with you in your business? Where do you see your business going, and how could this person fit in to help you grow in that direction and stay dedicated along the way? And along with your culture are your values. Like, what's important to you? Community, communication, entrepreneurship, those types of things. That's what you want to recognize in your candidate and ask questions that are relevant to that. The second type of question would revolve around skills or tasks. And the way that I would encourage you to approach those types of questions is with the STAR method. And STAR is so fun. STAR stands for S as in situational. So you want someone to tell you the situation about the task or whatever it is. T is the actual task that they did within the situation. A is the action. R is the result. What was the result? So
Can you give me an example of this?
I know, I was really loaded. Okay, so for example, I'm going to ask someone, tell me about a time when you had many competing priorities. What did you do? How did you accomplish it? Right. So as a candidate, so as an interviewing, you're looking for the STAR response. And so a STAR response would look like, well, when I worked at a job as a volunteer coordinator, I had several competing tasks. Like I had to put on a fundraiser, and I had a small event, and I also had to email all my volunteers, right? Something like that. That's a situation. The task is, what did I do? How did I handle it? Well, I decided that I would look at my calendar for the month and plan out all my tasks, and I made to-do lists every day so I could keep myself on schedule. And that's actually part of the action related. What happened after the task? Well, I then put on the events. Any time that I struggle with something, I'd ask for help. The results of my competing tasks were that everything went off without a hitch. There was something that I kind of struggled with, but because I asked for help, I was actually better and got feedback and excelled even more so in that task with the help of others. And now I have strengthened relationships. That probably is really loaded and long, but that's actually what you're looking for. You're looking for someone to tell you all of those things. Is that helpful, Shannon? Or is that a
Oh my
little?
gosh, that's so helpful. And it's also helpful in me sitting here thinking, thank goodness I just went ahead and hired Renee. Like, I don't want to do that in any way. I love that you get so excited about it because I sure don't. And that just highlights how we all have different strengths. And this is when we hire someone to help us with the things that do not excite us. I love how excited you are. And it was very clear how you explained it. I'm just, as you explain it, it's like giving me a bit of like, thank goodness that's not my job.
I feel that way too with other people's strengths. My eyes just roll in the back of my head, and I'm like, and actually, sidebar, that's why I hired someone for my team. I hired an audio engineer because I just couldn't edit audio for a podcast that I have coming out. And so that is something I had to recognize was a weakness within myself, but a strength within someone else.
Okay, that's so good. Okay, so then you did all of this. You took all of their notes. You asked questions that were about, what were they again? Culture, skills, and the STAR?
Culture, skills is the STAR is the type of response you want to look for.
Okay.
It makes it easier to compare responses. And then the last one is what we talked before is pay rate and when can they start, those kinds of little details. Where are they located is a big one.
Okay, like, will they be able to get to the job, or how much do they want paid? Do you have a
Yes.
title for that one? I feel like
Oh,
we have culture, skills, and
culture, skills, and logistics.
logistics.
Is
Okay,
that
that's good.
okay?
It's perfect. I like lists of things. I
I do
have this
too.
list in my brain. Okay. So then you went ahead, did the interviews with the top, we think it was 8, and then we did a check-in after those interviews.
Mhm. We
There
did.
you were telling me how those interviews went. I remember that. That was really helpful. And then you told me that I had to choose 3. I wanted to choose 5. And you said, nope. Tell me about why that is. Tell our listeners. I know now.
Sure. So we interviewed 8. I chose my top 5, although I ranked everybody. I ranked everybody based on how I thought they were a fit for you, Shannon, and then I ranked everybody for how I thought they were a fit for the skills and the knowledge of the job itself. So I just decided I wanted to compare. And so I highlighted about 5 and you're like, can I just interview everybody?" And I was like, "No, Shannon." And I hate telling people no. But the reason is it's great to only interview 3 because especially because you're owning your business, your time is valuable and it's cognitively taxing to do more than 3 people. It just
Right.
is. When you have 3, you can rate people, good, better, best, right? If we're yogis and we don't want to say anybody's like bad. So good, better, best.
Right. Yeah. Oh, this was so helpful. And this is probably why I needed so much help with it. Like the hard part for me is that sorting. I just feel like everyone wants the job. You took the emotional aspect out of it. It's like you were playing Tetris. Here's a game of Tetris, Shannon. You're in it. Choose only 3. That was good to have rules like that. Very helpful.
I'm glad. I'm really glad.
One thing also that you highlighted for me was the direction of the business and the culture of the business. Like, I feel like I could have used that at the beginning, like where I was putting that job description together. I kind of know that, but I think that would have added to it. Okay, so then I did the 3 interviews, and then you and I did a wrap up call, which was so helpful.
Yes. So I helped you to schedule the interviews
Yes.
and I also provided them with a link to access their tasks and I think you had sent them some links to some pertinent platforms that you use. And then you interviewed all 3 of them and it was just so exciting to hear your voice when we had another wrap-up call. You were just delighted with everybody you had talked to, but you instantly knew that you went in wanting to hire one person, but because you had talked to all 3, your eyes had just opened up to all possibilities and you had hired 2 people and I couldn't have been more thrilled.
I think I asked you, okay, because I was like looking for another rule and you and I chatted about it. I know I asked you, like, is this allowed? Can I hire 2 people? I see that they're a different fit for different reasons. And it's worked out really well, by the way,
Okay.
tremendously well. Okay, let's go into this. I did test tasks. Say that 8 times fast. But I wanted to make sure that people could actually do the work that I was going to put forward. So I used Trello, I like Canva, we were making graphics, and you helped me to, because I think I was wanting to get on and do a video or something. And you were like, let's see if they can do it if it's just written out. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes. What we wanted to capture was their work style, their work ethic. We wanted to see if they knew the platforms that they said they did, or at least, sometimes we think we understand something, but somebody else will kind of take a look at it and maybe we don't understand it as well as we think we did. So that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to do a in real time work sampling. And also I encouraged you to actually give them tasks for something that you could use right then in that very moment, whether you hired them or not. It was usable tasks, which I think is so great for yoga teachers who are business owners. Everything has a purpose. Everything does, and also I recommended that you use these tasks and review them and let them guide your interview. That way
Yes.
you could talk about, give feedback, see how they react to that, how they kind of work with you in real time, just like they were, doing it in real time with you on the job if they were hired.
Yeah, this was so helpful because my experience with interviewing people or being interviewed, which has been more than my experience, is like those awkward interview questions. And I did not want to do that. I wanted to like get to know their personality through this and talk about the work. Like, exactly. Your recommendation for that just put me at ease. Are there any questions that you suggest for people in this final stage of the interview process?
In the final stage, any questions?
Like, is there anything that you ever say to people, make sure you ask these questions in this final interview?
Definitely ask them what they understand about the role and the tasks.
Mhm.
It's good just to kind of come up again behind it. Sometimes people will go through a whole interview process and maybe kind of miss a thing or two, and it's a good time to just clarify anything. Ask them what their goals are again, and where they see themselves going in a few years. It's kind of hard to ask that question when someone's only being hired for a couple of hours, but if you find someone and they really want to hang on and expand with you in your business, that's kind of a really big indicator of someone who's motivated to work for you. And I would also suggest asking them to give you feedback. I know that kinda sounds crazy, but when you're reviewing a task, you could say, "Okay, is there anything that you'd like to tell me? Or is there anything, that you'd like to change about this process?" Something like that. That will help give you an indicator if someone can think outside of the box, if they feel comfortable talking to you about things that are maybe uncomfortable, and can set the tone right away for a new working relationship with the person. Is that helpful, Shannon?
Very helpful. It's so helpful. And also this like projection of where they want to go. I've worked with, or I've been friends with multiple people who are self employed. And when they go to hire someone, a lot of the time they have told me, I'm finding people who want to work with me to use this as a growth platform for this bigger vision that they have. And they weren't happy with that. At the Connected Yoga Teacher in our team, I'm really looking for people who have a side gig, who like, or they have this full time thing that they do and they're more contract work. Like, I want to know that because my hours right now for them are not full time hours, I want them to have a solid base in what they're doing. So, this is good. It's really, it makes a difference when you're hiring.
Good.
Is there anything that you would add as a sidebar for anyone who's showing up for that final interview? Because it's nerve-wracking.
Oh my gosh, it is totally nerve-wracking. Um, I think because we're all, yoga teachers, I think when I say take a moment and meditate or move, that would resonate with everybody. I've
Mhm.
been interviewed for so many jobs myself that I do. I'll go for a walk, or even before this call, I made sure to meditate and, get dressed, put on makeup, and do my hair so I could feel more confident. And then always have questions written out for every interview. That's something that I find a lot of candidates don't do, but I find it's what employers are just craving. We want to have questions asked to us. Ask us about the job, ask us about the business, ask us about us, find commonalities, because I really, really, really believe that interviewing is totally like dating. It's a two-way street. It's not just for the other person to get to know if they like you and want to take you out on a date. It's for you to get to know them too, to see if you want to progress further in this relationship.
That's such a good analogy, I love it, and it's true. If people are asking questions, they're like, it feels like they're interested, and in order for them to be interested, they have to know something about your business, so that's
Yeah.
good. It's really
Yes.
good. I remember Sean talking to one of his nieces, and she was applying for a job, and that was his number one tip: have questions for them, and she got the job, so it worked.
Shauna is so smart. And congratulations to her too. That's really cool.
So then the other thing that you did is you emailed everyone whether they got the job or not. And I was so relieved because I didn't want to send that email out to people who didn't get the job. I was excited to tell the people who did, I did not want to tell the people who didn't. So do you want to talk about that step?
Yes, nobody likes rejection. Nobody likes rejecting other people. It's that, hey, thank you so much for going on this date with me, but I don't think we're the right fit for each other type email. I'm sticking with that whole dating analogy. But coming back to very much, real time, what candidates are looking for is they're just looking for a relationship with you, right? They've applied for a reason. They think you're great. They want to just be involved in some sort of relationship with you. We're all humans, and everybody wants to know something, whether or not it's a good outcome or the outcome they're looking for, right? Because there's no such thing as good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
So with that in mind, I really wanted to make sure people were in loop the whole time. And so we crafted, you and I, a very special email. I loved how you came up with just a little blurb of something personal from you. I let people know who I was, why I was emailing them, and how I could relate, and that I was grateful that they each had applied. Personally, I don't think many people get we in the recruiting world, we do call it a rejection email, so I do apologize for that word, but one of those emails letting us know that we didn't get a job. But for us, Shannon, I've never seen an email where someone tells me they're grateful that I applied and spent time and thank you. And we got so many responses back saying, thank you so much. I'm so glad Shannon found someone and that she's taken care of. Oh, I'm so glad to hear back. And thank you so much for keeping me in the loop. That means so much. It was so rewarding to hear back from so many people that were just grateful to know one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. It was. You forwarded each and every one of those emails on to me. And that was like the highlight. Okay, this worked so well. I was so glad that we went through this process. Honestly, if you would not have jumped in where you did, I'd probably still be doing it.
Why?
I feel like it's overwhelming to me at that point. You moved me through, like you made me set those dates and you held me accountable to those things. Like I knew that I owed different things to you at different times and that I had to make it happen. Like, thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm blushing. You can't see me, but I'm blushing.
Is there anything else that you would tell people before they put that job application out there for other people, or along the way, anything that you can think of? Oh, I know one thing I wanted to bring up is you said that some people opt to do personality tests as well.
Ooh, yes. The personality tests are becoming a bigger thing for small business entrepreneurs to use in their recruiting process. I hadn't seen it done before. I used to work for super big corporations, and one of the tests that I took like at the super big corporation in person with 20 other people was the DISC profile. That's D is in Delta, E is in India, S is in Sierra, C is in Charlie, military alphabet, woohoo. And that's online now for you to use at your disposal. You could give people a dosha quiz if you wanted to too. But these are things that are helpful, because if you take like the DISC or the Myers-Briggs is another great one, then you can understand more about yourself and then understand the people that you would work really well with. So that is something that is handy, and those can really be given any way along the application process, but at least before the top three.
Okay. I know there's also the Enneagram. Some people use that. And I feel like there's one more that some bigger corporations use, like a quick start. And is that the Myers-Briggs one?
I haven't heard it called the quick start, but
Like the test isn't called the quick start, but that's one group of people in that. Oh, I can't remember what it's called. If I figure it out, I'll let you know.
yes.
I feel like our show notes writer Crunch knows the answer to this, because I'm pretty sure she works on a team and they use this one.
Oh, I'm super curious. Yes, please let me know. I am a lover of all types of personality tests, and Myers-Briggs has a dear place in my heart.
Is there any one that you think is the best one to use in terms of when you're hiring someone?
I don't. I don't because because I studied quite a bit of these in school and college, and a personality test, unfortunately, can't be used just solidly by itself. There has to be an in-person type of interview. There has to be objective questions along with the personality test. So I think a personality test is just one indicator, one helpful indicator, but it can't solely be relied upon because of so many other variables because we're humans, you know.
Hmm. I think that's so good to know. And also, I'm guessing that you would tell people just get them to do one. Don't get them to do multiple personality tests. Is that correct?
I would. I especially if you're hiring someone for just a couple of hours a week, up to 10 hours or something like that a week to work with you. It's a lot to ask of a person to do, more than, like, let's say, 2 personality tests. But I think one would be really fun. It would be fun for them. It would be fun for you, something to kind of talk about, like, ooh, you're extroverted, I'm super introverted, something like that. But yes, I encourage you to definitely be mindful of your time and their time as you go through this process.
Right. Okay. Is there anything else, Renee, that you can think of that would really help someone in this hiring process? Any last piece of information you'd like to offer?
Yes, something that is really a big thing for me is doing a little bit of project management. I know that that term can sound super overwhelming, but trust me, I take something that's like super overwhelming and just kind of water it down. So as you're going through this recruiting process, or even before you put out your job description, think about the date that you'd really like to start working with someone, and then backtrack from there to see how much time you need to give yourself for this whole process. It generally takes about 4 to 8 weeks. It just really depends on your schedule. But when you backtrack from the start date, you can say, okay, I want them to start on this day. So that means a week before they need to have training and onboarding. And then a week before, I need to do my top 3. And a week before, and you can kind of see how it goes from there. You can shorten it or elongate it as much as you need to, but there's some sanity that comes along with just knowing where you're going, and there's this sort of like really like a relaxed feeling. It's like everything's under control. You can see when you have due dates for yourself or to somebody else if you're working with a recruiter, and so I just want to encourage everybody to take a step back before just diving in. Just take a breath, take a moment, and really plan it out.
Oh, that's so good. This is something that you helped me with, but we were partway through, and I remember when we started with that, like, when would you like them to be starting? I had to really look at my calendar. Oh, that's not possible. We're going to have to look at a different date in order to get all of these interviews in and all of the work done. This has been fascinating. Okay, so you mentioned your podcast as well, and I want you to share that as well. What's your podcast called and what's it about?
Oh my gosh. I'm so wow, I'm so honored. Okay. So I had to recruit and hire my own audio engineer. I'm super grateful for Michelle Baker. Just have to put a shout out to her, just like you do to Miss Wonderful Crunch. And my podcast is called Light Me Up. It's dedicated to people who are on the brink of change, who are looking for some support. And the guests that I have on come on for one season to talk about one topic. So I'm really condensing everything for my listeners because I want them to feel like they can easily digest information. And pun totally intended, my first season is about food.
Digestion.
Yes. So you can find me. I'm actually on all the platforms. I'm hosted on Anchor FM, and then I'm on iTunes and Spotify. Spotify is where I found the Connected Yoga Teacher. So it, again, holds a dear place in my heart. But I'm also on like Breaker and the Google podcast stuff. And I'm really excited to hear from people who want to give me suggestions on what they'd like to hear in upcoming seasons.
Oh, that's super exciting. It's not easy to start a podcast. Congratulations. I know you were wanting to do it for a while, and I'm so excited that you did it because that's the scariest part. Now you just plug along, ask people what they want to hear, and keep doing the work. That is so cool. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time today, Renee. It's been amazing. I'm so excited for our yoga teachers who are thinking about hiring. And if they want to get in touch with you and get you to help them with their process, what's the best way to do that?
Sure. I've got a couple of places. I can be found on Instagram these days. I'm honing in, and my handle is at Clair de Lune Yoga. And I'm also on LinkedIn a lot, of course, for all my recruiting stuff. And you can find me at the Recruiting Yogi.
Great. I will make sure that we put both of those links. And then what about, do you have a website as well?
Sure. My website's www.renee-clair.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shannon, for being my consultant, my support system, and having me on. I appreciate it.
Connected Yoga teachers, I want to hear from you. What did you think about listening to all of this? Are some of you thinking about how you could recruit someone, or are you thinking about how you can streamline some of the tasks and work on your time management skills? I just wanted to outline the list that Renee and I went through. The very first was a job description. Number 2 is application, and I'm super excited to share my online application with you. I'll make sure to share it in the show notes so that you can see you cannot apply for the job now. The job has been filled by 2 amazing people, Nick and Sinead, shout out to you, but you can see the application and you could copy it. Number 3 is sorting and ranking applications, and this is where I reached out to Renee and got her help. Number 4 is check-in call about the sorting. That was super helpful. Number 5 was interviews. Renee did the first interviews. She interviewed the top 8 people. Number 6 was check-in for interviews to help me to choose the top 5. Number 7 was tasks and personality tests for the final 3. I didn't do personality tests when I did this flow, but I'm super curious to know now what my team is with different personality tests. Hang on, Connected Yoga Teacher team. Maybe that'll be our next thing. Number 8 was the employee interviews. So this is where I talked to 3 people in this interview process out of 5. Number 9 was a wrap-up call with Renee. And number 10 was an email out to everyone. And again, Renee took care of that for me. One huge takeaway from this, Connected Yoga teachers, is when you dislike doing a certain task, it can be worth so much to get someone else who is super excited, like Renee is, about spreadsheets and sorting data and looking at job applications. It's just not my favorite work to be doing. So I would really ask you right now, what are some of the things that when you get to that place, you would offload that task to someone else? Connected Yoga teachers, before I sign off, I want to share something that is going on because at this point in the podcast, I usually talk about how we can meet up in person. And right now, I'm looking at the 2-day Yoga for Pelvic Health training that happens in September in Meaford, Ontario, and we are looking at how to move this training online. The bonus of this is that a few more spots would open up. Another bonus is that you would have a full recording of the 20 hours of training. It would not be 20 hours over 2 days. That would be too much to be online. And as I'm recording this for you, I actually do not have the website page up to date yet to reflect that it's happening online now instead of in person. But I will get there. Remind me if you don't see it yet. You can go to theconnectedyogateacher.com and look under trainings and events. Also, another way, if you're really interested in learning more about yoga for pelvic health, near the end of May, our Pelvic Health Professionals membership will open its doors to everyone on the wait list. A lot of you have been reaching out and wondering when is it opening. It is coming up very soon. Make sure you go to pelvichealthprofessionals.com and get on the waitlist to get the early bird invitation to join. Thank you so much to our whole team here at the Connected Yoga Teacher, Suzanne, Crunch, Nick, and Sinead. You make every podcast episode possible. You make so much happen for our community behind the scenes. Thank you for all of your time. Also, thank you, dear Connected Yoga Teacher listeners. You are doing the important work out in your community. Some of you are doing the important work that is internal so that you can really show up and serve your community. Thank you for doing the work of either resting and restoring when you need to, or diving in and serving your community. And before I sign off, I would love to know what you will be doing this week to stay connected to yourself, your yoga practice, and to your community so that you can share the yoga that lights you up.